so you know, it likes to blare that on your screen. Awesome. There we go. I'm going to start recording so people who want to see the replay will see the replay. But I figured we'd start just with some introductions. Everyone kind of get to know each other, share a little bit about you either in the chat or out loud. So does anyone want to introduce themselves?
All
right. Thank you, Sierra.
Okay, so my name is Sonikla. I am from Slovakia, but currently I'm in South Africa. And what type of VA I am? That's a good question. I actually just started my business in August, so I'm kind of like doing all over the place. But what I would like to focus is on creators of online courses and podcasters. That's like something really interesting me right now. Oh. And fun fact about me, I'm vegetarian, and not because I believe like let's save planet or animals, but it's really nice, like don't get me wrong, but it just kind of happened to me, okay? So I didn't judge people if they eat meat, okay? So yeah, I think that's about me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. All right. Go ahead.
I can go. Oh my God, I look crazy. It's fine.
Oh, you're good. Don't worry.
I could join you and put a top bun on my head too.
Right.
Go ahead.
You guys can you guys still see me if I open it?
I think so.
Oh, okay. I just always do it on my phone because I have this handy dandy stand, so it makes it so much easier. Okay, I am Sierra. I am from Delaware in the States. I am a virtual assistant for the pet industry, for dogpreneurs. Me and my friend Dom, we worked through that. I typically do social media management, email management, project management, and general admin tasks. General admin is usually an add-on, but right now I have been getting a lot of interest with social media and running like dog business pages. My Instagram handle is sHaddock the assistant. Might change that soon to make it more dog friendly.
I want to share your Instagram handles in the chat. That way people can easily find it.
And then a fun fact about me is that I have been to 10 different countries. I got to get a new fun fact because that's getting boring to me, but.
Well, it's great during COVID times.
Right.
Whoa,
right.
10 countries. I haven't left my house.
Right. Well, I did, and I regretted it. So
that's what happens. Awesome. Making sure I count everyone. It looks like Sierra, by the way, it looks like you kind of just sent that to me for some reason. It happens. Just letting you know, because you can send direct message. Yeah, you can send direct messages in there. Anyway, does anyone else want to introduce themselves, or feel free to do that in the chat if you feel more comfortable doing that? Anyone?
I don't mind going next.
There we go. All right, Holly.
Hi. I don't know if anyone else is from the UK here, but I am. So yeah, I'm Holly from the UK, and VA, what type of VA I am? So I've tried to target bloggers and wedding professionals, like wedding planners, wedding photographers. I haven't actually landed a client in that niche yet. So I'm actually currently working for a online course creator who does a podcast and who basically teaches other people how to create online courses and make passive income and stuff. So she's like quite a big retainer. But other than that, I don't have any clients. But yeah, fun fact about me, I'm also vegetarian. And I can't eat gluten, which really sucks. So that's just, I don't know, my dietary requirements, if anyone wanted to know.
That sucks. Oh, well, I mean, as long as you're able to manage it, that's what's important. So, because you can still live a happy life. Awesome. Thank you so much for introducing yourself. I believe Gabby said she was from the UK or somewhere over there. I think we had to talk about time zones. Is that true, Gabby?
Yeah, sorry, I'm having some camera problems.
Oh, don't worry about it.
But I can introduce myself next. Hi, I'm Gabby. I'm from the UK as well. And I'm a VA for like fitness coaches or mindset coaches, but I also want to work with travelers or travel bloggers and photographers because I'm very into like travel and that sort of stuff. But yeah,
Awesome. Love that. Great. And who else has an intro? We have Amber and Alyssa. Would you guys like to introduce yourselves?
Hi, everybody. I'm Amber. Nice to meet you. So I am a VA and a social community manager, and I work with anyone in like the holistic field, spirituality, so like meditation, incense, crystals, holistic health. A fun fact about me: I just started learning how to make vegan cheese.
How to make
It's a
it?
very
Okay.
fun process.
So it's like
Yeah.
making it out of like nuts, like cashews and stuff. I've heard stuff like that.
Yeah,
Huh.
basically lots of cashews. That's like the main thing. So
That actually sounds
yeah, I'm
really
happy to be here.
interesting. You should share that in your stories because that's something I would like to see. It's content specifically for
Oh, that's a
Dami.
good idea. Next,
I mean, besides that, it's just kind of fun to share that kind of stuff. That's why I like to
sure.
share my wino self in my stories. It's kind of fun. It's just fun. It makes stories fun and it gives you something to post about. Besides business, which can get boring. Awesome. And Alyssa, thank you for joining. I know you were taking care of stuff in the back. Do you want to introduce yourself too?
Sure. Hi everyone, I'm Alyssa. I am from San Antonio, Texas, but currently in the Dallas area. I plan on being a virtual assistant for women-owned businesses. I currently do 2 salons, and it seems like that's kind of where I'm going, I guess. And a fun fact about me is, I don't know, I collect vinyl.
Ooh, that's kind of cool. Now you should share that in your stories. By the way, all these fun facts would be fun things to share in stories. Just a fun little tidbit for everyone. Oh, now my brother's calling me. Speaking of which, but yeah, that's really cool. How many do you have?
They're still in boxes because I am dealing with a move. I moved in like yesterday. But I haven't counted in a while, but the last I counted, I think I have like 126.
126?
Mhm.
Yeah, that sounds like a collection to me. Way more than I have, which is 0. Awesome. That's really cool. Oh, look, the other Dominique is joining. Oh, let me do for a second. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. Hi, Dominique. Thank you for joining. It's really weird saying my own name, by the way.
Hi.
Hi, thanks for joining. Do you want to introduce yourself? I know you just popped in, but you're the last person to introduce themselves.
Oh, sure. Okay, so my name is Dominique, which you could just call me Neek, because she's Dami.
That is true.
And she's technically my coach.
Technically.
So, yeah, technically she's my coach. Yeah, so I am an automation strategist. I deal with everything automations, organization. I put systems together, and I also do some VA work administratively. So that's a little bit.
Oh, I think you cut out a little bit there, but awesome. I think we got everyone, right? Tell me if I missed someone. Yeah, I think we got everyone. Awesome. Yeah, Sundays are always weird. You never know who's going to show up. But it's good that we have a nice little small group today because that's going to make it easier to answer your guys' questions. So how this is going to work is I have some slides I'm going to show you. We're going to run through some of the business foundation stuff first. And a lot of it's stuff you've probably heard before, and some of it might not be. But I'm just going to kind of run through that. So if you have any questions, because I'm going to be sharing slides, I'd prefer if you would unmute yourself to interrupt me and ask the question because I can't always see the chat unless you're okay with me answering it once I get out of the slide sharing. So just letting you guys know that ahead of time. For some reason, when you're sharing screen, it's hard to see the chat sometimes. But yeah, so feel free to interrupt me at any point. If you have any questions, I will stop after every slide, probably in every section, to ask for questions. So feel free to ask them then. And if you have any comments or anything, again, feel free to use the chat, but obviously feel free to interrupt me as well. So sound good? Oh, good. Awesome. Let me share my screen so we can get started. Oh, goodness. Okay, well, it's going to play this game, isn't it? right. First, I didn't really get to introduce myself. I know a lot of you guys already know me, but I'm the authenticity coach. Only reason I'm really showing this slide is because I like this photo. I think it's funny. But yeah, basically a little bit about me is I actually studied, I went to school for journalism, ended up being an admin assistant, hated my life, became a YouTuber and thought it was a lot of fun, which got me into the entrepreneur zone. So then I became a copywriter / VA, and now I'm a coach. Yeah, been through a lot. I feel like that's a lot of us. We've been through a lot of transformations in our lives. It's just kind of fun to put it on paper sometimes and see what that looks like. So I highly recommend it. You get the chance. And basically, I help female online entrepreneurs in their first year to develop their unique and authentic boss mindset. So I know that's kind of vague, but essentially what I focus on is helping people stand out, helping people feel confident and comfortable in being just who they are, and a lot of kicking imposter syndrome in the ass. So there's that. I would also like to warn you that I have zero problem cursing. If you have a problem with it, feel free to let me know. But that is something I do. If you've seen any of my content, you'll know that's true. Awesome. Let's move on. We already did that. All right, let's get started. I had originally made this GIF when this was earlier in the month, but you know what? Let's get started. The first question I want to ask you guys are kind of, what are your 2021 goals? Because part of the reason we're doing this and building this foundation is because we want to achieve our goals. And a lot of these are going to help us do exactly that. So I'm just going to stop sharing for just a moment so that you all can maybe share a few of your goals. It doesn't have to be long, doesn't have to be complicated. It can be whatever you want. So does anyone want to share? Or type it in the chat, whatever you prefer.
I can go first, seeing as no one's talking.
This always happens, and I just wait here.
Yeah, I have only just really started. So, like I said before, I've only got one client. I started with her on the 4th of Jan, so I've really only just started being a VA. So I think really my goal for this year is to just figure it out, figure out what it's like to run my own business, the whole VA world. This is the first time I've worked online, so really this year is just dipping my toes in the water and figuring it out.
Okay.
Really.
I mean, would you like to go full time with it, or are you still just figuring out if you even like it or not? Is that kind of the deal?
To be honest, I'm doing it kind of full time now. So I've nearly quit my day job.
Nice.
Although we're all closed in the UK, so everything's on lockdown, so everywhere's shut. So I'm not actually working there anyway at the minute. But yeah, I'd like to go full time this year, definitely. But I think that's kind of already happened.
Yeah, awesome. So it sounds kind of like your goal is just basically to figure out if this is what you want to do.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, so that's a yes or no. That's a really easy thing. Yes or no. I love that. Anyone else want to share their goals? For me, it's to move to Denver. I know that's not business related, but it kind of is.
I'll go.
All right.
Also, side note, my best friend from high school lives in Denver and absolutely adores it.
Everyone I know loves Denver, so
yeah, she went to Colorado State, and she fell in love and hasn't been back. We would have to beg her to come back home. Anyway, so my goals for this year, so I recently niched down with probably in the last month or so, and I am really loving it. And right now I'm just connecting with people. I do have one potential new client, but my goal for this year is I would love to really, really go full time. I have that opportunity, so it's really about making the full-time income. So I've set my goal for this year as 65,000 for the year. And then I want to really focus on consistency. So whether, I don't want to really vary from 3 to 5K months. I want to consistently hit 5K months so I can hit my 65.
Awesome.
Month. Yeah.
Perfect. I mean, that's a good goal. I feel like that's most people's goal, is to hit a certain amount per month, because that's just how most of us live.
Right.
Anyone else want to share any goals?
Hey,
I'll go. After you.
Okay, thank you. My goals are very similar to Sierra. I I like the idea of making, you know, XK a month. I would love to have 3 to 4 clients that I work with year round. I love the idea of like meeting new people and like working with new people, but I do, there's something that's so intimate about like finding a client, knowing it works, and then like continuing that work with them. And I'm also looking to move into a new apartment. So that's something I would really love to do as well.
Oh yeah, I like the moving one because that's same as me. It's like your goal is, I think that's part of your business, right? Like part of your goal can be to change your lifestyle. So I think that does connect. So if that's
Yeah.
anyone else's goal too, that totally relates. Awesome. Nick, do you want to share? Wait, see, might be distracted. I'm going to kind of move on. Basically, the idea of this is that if you don't know what your goal is, know what it is. I think it really comes down to that, right? Like know what your goal is, make it as specific as possible. We'll kind of dig into that a little bit later because that's one of the pieces. But all of these foundations are to get you to that goal. So if you're not clear on your goal, none of this is going to help you. Bam, let's go. Let's move on. Okay. If it will let me move on. There we go. Much better. So this is kind of the checklist. I phrase it in this way just because it's easier for me to think about it, but we'll kind of go through each of them individually. It starts with who are you? And obviously I'm an authenticity coach. So obviously I'm going to talk about that. But that's essentially your strengths, your values, your beliefs. Who are you? And that's going to kind of be the literal foundation for everything else. Because if you're not building your business on something that actually applies to you and that you like and that you're good at or would like to be good at and that you believe in, the whole foundation crumbles, everything crumbles. So that's pretty obvious, right? We'll talk a little bit more about that in detail. There's the who do you help? That's your ideal client and niche target market. And we're going to talk about why they're different because they are. What problem do you solve? So once you figure this out, it's like, well, what problems do they have and what problems are you solving for them? And that has to do a lot with market research. You've probably heard that before. I will have a resource for you guys if you want it that helps you figure out your ideal client and market research is a freebie of mine. So if you want that freebie, and I'm going to repeat this later too, just put it in the chat, just put freebie or something in the chat and I'll make sure to get that to you. Then there's, oh my God, why is this doing this? I got to fix this little thing that's blocking my way. Then there's what solution do you provide? So you talk about the problems. So what solution are you providing to them? And that has a lot to do with your specialization. Not everyone will specialize, but it has a lot to do with that. Where do you want to go? So that's talking about your goals and visions. So all of this stuff will kind of get you here. Go ahead. Did someone say something? Oh, I thought I heard someone say something for a moment. Okay. Never mind. And then the last little piece of it is the strategy. So once you know where you want to go and what you actually do, it's how to get there. And again, we're going to talk about this all in detail. So before I even stop for questions, I'm going to pop into number 1, and then I'll ask you questions after each one, or ask you if you have questions after each one. Awesome. Okay, so the first business foundation is who are you? And I know this can sound sometimes like some hoodoo voodoo stuff. Like people are just like, why do I need to write about this? Why do I need to think hard about this? Again, the whole business foundation is built on this little piece because you at this current moment are the entire business. So if you don't get clear on this, nothing you do will work. It's just kind of the reality of it. And you can see it in the people who actually succeed versus the people who do the same exact thing and don't. And it's often because they're doing something that they think they're kind of good at. They're just kind of following, what they were doing as an employee, but they haven't sat down and really thought about what can I offer? Like, who am I? And I also tie this into what do you want your legacy to be? My coach likes framing it as a legacy. And I think that's a really great way to put it. As you're going on this business, what do you want people to remember you as? So I have a little sticky note right above me that says my legacy is centered around authentic community building and storytelling. So everything I do is centered on that particular legacy. I want people to know that I'm the person that builds these authentic communities, and I value storytelling. So everything I do involves stories in some way. That's why my ultimate goal is to run a convention. It all ties together. It all ties together. But having that sort of clarity really does help you as you go along. So if you haven't done this in detail, I highly recommend sitting down and really being like, what are my strengths? What do I value? And what do I believe in? And what do I want people to remember me as? I know that seems really dramatic, but I see someone typed something in the chat. Just want to see if I can, oh, okay, freebie, gotcha. Yeah, so basically this will help you solidify literally everything after this, because to decide who you want to work with, what solution you're providing, what specialization you have, all of that is based on this, clearly. And I will get into more detail about that. But does anyone have any questions about this piece of things? No. Feel free to unmute yourself and ask if you have questions. Awesome, then I will move on. But again, feel free to interrupt me at any point. Bam, moving on. All right, who do you help? So if you guys didn't hear me before, you weren't listening or whatever it might be, I do have an ideal client market research freebie that basically walks you through how to create your ideal client profile and how to do market research. So if you want that freebie, feel free to type it in the chat so I can give it to you. And anyone who's listening to the recording, feel free to do that too. But yeah, it's 20-page resource. You really can't go wrong with it. So what this piece is all about, once you figured out what your strengths are, and I'm talking like, when I'm talking strengths, by the way, I'm talking, think about all the stuff you don't think is related. Like for me, maybe I might mention that I can play piano. So even if it seems unrelated, because that kind of stuff can play into things like can play into your strategy, it can play into your marketing. So it makes it more unique and more authentic to you. That's why you want to think of things like this. But now we're on to who are you actually helping? So who's your ideal client? I want to be very specific that niche and ideal clients are two very different things. And I don't know if this is blocking right. There we go. Because a lot of people will figure out a niche, but they won't figure out an ideal client. And this is why the freebie is going to be really helpful for you, because it helps you figure out your ideal client. Yeah, so a niche or a target market is a group. You'll generally start with a target market. You'll further into a niche, and then your ideal client is one specific person within that niche. So if you've decided, so for example, Sierra's decided dogpreneurs, right? Then she would go along, because that would be a niche. Dog entrepreneurs who work with dogs, essentially. And then the ideal client, is we've talked to her, I've talked with her about this before, is basically one specific person within that niche. You don't want to work with just anyone within that niche. You want to work with someone who is willing to treat you like a partner, who's energetic, who is within this age range, who lives in this specific area. So the ideal client profile kind of gets to the nitty gritty of all of that. What's their personality? Where do they live? Maybe what's their income? The idea being, and this is what's really, really important, just because you've identified an ideal client who's like one person doesn't mean you won't work with someone who's slightly different than that. You might work with, even though you've identified like, oh, I work with people between ages 20 and 30, you might work with someone who's 40. And that's completely fine. It's not meant to be like, oh, I only work with this specific type of person. It's just meant to cater your message to one specific person. Because if you don't do that, people will look at your posts and look at your messaging and think, oh, that's cool, and then scroll away because it doesn't fully relate to them. Doing this with if you have an ideal client, then they can fully relate because you're talking to one person. And yes, that means some people won't relate, but that doesn't mean that those same people won't still want to work with you. Does that make sense? Does anyone have any questions about that in particular?
I've got a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I've done like a activity like this, like finding your ideal client and your niche and everything like that. Obviously, like when you're first starting out and you don't have many clients and you're kind of like, okay, I really need to like find reliable and regular income, what kind of makes you think, okay, I've got 5 people coming to me, they're not my ideal client, they're not in my niche, but I need money. Like, what do you do there? Like, does anyone else struggle with that?
This will happen. The important thing about that, I mean, your idea of an ideal client can change. Maybe you've based it on one specific person, you meet someone else who doesn't quite fit it, but you still want to work with them. You're still like, I want to work with them. There's a difference between wanting to work with them and being desperate for money. And I understand the desperation for money. I understand that, well, like when we want money, sometimes you can take what comes to you. I will say that can lend yourself towards getting clients that just are not good for you. Because when you do the ideal client thing, you've identified the kind of person you want to work with. So you might get someone who's super bossy, someone who doesn't listen to you, someone who doesn't pay on time. You might get all those people because you were desperate for money versus being a little pickier. And it's really tough to do. I understand when you're just starting out. It's really tough when you run into these people and you're like, oh, I really want a client. But if you're saying that in your head versus I want this person as a client, then that's a problem. The ideal client profile is just a resource. If you're sitting there talking to this person, you want to work with them, great, do it. It comes down to what you want. It's just supposed to help you kind of know who you're targeting. So you can use specific words in your messaging. And like, for example, knowing that your ideal client works a side job or something like that, knowing that they earn this much money per year approximately. So that way you can speak to the specific struggles that they might be having. That's what that's for. But when it comes to people actually coming to you, it's more about, well, do you actually want to work with them or are you just desperate? And I do think that you might not be right away, but you will generally feel better about yourself in the long run if you're able to turn away the people that you think don't fully fit with what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
Like if you're able to recognize, I don't want to do that kind of work. That's just not me. I had a client recently who was asked to do Facebook ad work and she wanted the money, but she realized I don't know Facebook ads. And even though they knew it, she didn't want to do it. So she had to tell them no. And there's a way to nicely do it while still staying on their radar for the things that maybe you want to help them with. And maybe give them like, hey, I know someone who can do it for you. So there's a way to nicely do it. But I think in the long run, you will feel better if you're able to turn away the people that are going to make you feel miserable, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Have you run into that before with people? Like, is that what you're saying?
What do you mean? Sorry.
Have you run into this situation before with someone that you didn't know if you wanted to work with them, but you needed the money?
Oh no. So I did have someone reach out to me, actually. It was really early on. And when I had the discovery call with them, it was meant to be like 30 minutes. It went on for an hour and 45 minutes. And afterwards I had to lie down. Like they just didn't know what they wanted.
45?
Honestly. And afterwards I got off the call and I was like,
I would have hung up.
what just happened?
Been there.
I would have hung up. I
there.
would have been like, oops, sorry, connection was bad.
Yeah, it was awful. I didn't realize till afterwards, oh my God, I don't want to work with you.
Yeah.
So it's only happened once. Yeah.
It's a lesson you learn. I mean, I've certainly worked with, this is why I teach people this, is because I've been through all those clients. I've been through those clients. Just because, like, you know, you think, oh, well, I can do anything. Like, I'll do any work I have to. That's what you did as an employee, right? When we worked in our 9-to-5s, even if we didn't like the job, we did it, right? So it's kind of hard to break from that mindset.
Sometimes you'll even learn down the road, like that client I've been talking to you about.
That's
like
true.
I signed with someone when I first started because I was so excited and I was figuring out who I wanted to work with. And later down the road, I realized, and that's even another sticky situation. So good thing you did figure it out early, but I literally am terminating this guy right now.
Oh, good. There will come people, like, especially because in the beginning, maybe they'll seem really nice, or maybe you decide like, I want to work with the type of person who's kind of fun and bubbly, and that's great and all, but then you work with the person who's fun and bubbly and you realize, okay, I also want to work with someone who's organized.
Yeah. Well, there's also
it's that sort of thing.
There's people who hear assistant and they think below you rather than like, no, this is my business. I'm here to help you and support you, but it's not like, you know, in the movies, like, I'm not your assistant. I'm not going to get you coffee. I'm not at your beck and call.
Mhm.
So that's another niche.
But yeah, so
Point.
when we talk about ideal client profiles, again, that part's just for the messaging really, and for your own sake of like getting thoughts down. Because if it's just in your head, you'll realize when you start writing it down that maybe you weren't as clear as you thought. Like you start writing it down, you're like, oh wait, I need to clarify this. That happens a lot. So if you just have in your head, whatever it might be, an idea, whatever it is, write it down. Just because it puts it lets you look at it a little more objectively, so you can see if it actually makes sense. But that's what that ideal client profile is for. When it actually comes to getting clients, whoever's coming to you is coming to you. That can also give you a sense of the type of people you're attracting as well. Hi, Kenyana. Thank you for joining.
Hi.
But yeah, awesome. We're talking about ideal clients right now. And I was just telling everyone else that I have an ideal client market research freebie that I offer people. If you're interested in learning more about that and having something to kind of guide you on that, feel free to type freebie in the chat if you want to. And also feel free to introduce yourself in the chat since we did that in the beginning.
No problem. Thank you.
Awesome. So I want to make sure everyone's on the same page. Just like I thought. Any other questions about the ideal client thing? Are you feeling all right about that, Holly?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Awesome. Awesome. And Kenyana, since you just popped in, I know you didn't get a chance to hear a lot of that conversation, but did you have any questions about ideal clients, figuring it out, figuring out your niche and ideal client stuff?
Not at the moment.
Awesome. All right. Perfect. And obviously you'll have access to this replay afterwards. Everyone's going to have access to the replay. So if you need to look back on anything, you'll have access to that.
Perfect.
Awesome. Let me share my screen again so we can get back into it. So yeah, super, super important. Another thing I want you to understand about ideal clients too is that just get as specific as you can. Understand that like you can sometimes get a little broad. Like you can say you're aiming at entrepreneurs. Just understand that within that, you're probably going to have a bunch of different types of entrepreneurs that have different struggles. So just understanding that that could possibly come across as confusing in your content if you're not careful. I still think that you can do that. Just, understanding if you're identifying a bunch of different struggles that don't apply to everyone in that your ideal client, like target market, you could run into issues. So if you have issues with that, feel free to DM me. I'm always happy to answer those questions. So, all right, moving on. The next piece of this puzzle, once you figured out who you are and who you're helping, so who you are and who they are essentially, now you're figuring out what problems you solve. So this is where market research helps. And I know everyone hears market research and kind of is like, yeah, cool, sounds helpful, and then doesn't really do it. Or does it once and then doesn't do it again. And I know it sounds scary sometimes to just reach out to people and, get information from them, but there's a lot of different ways to get market research that doesn't require you to you don't necessarily have to create a form, and you don't necessarily have to get on calls with people. You can just ask questions in DMs, in your stories, in Facebook groups, just to get information about your market, the market you're trying to aim at. And this is going to be so helpful, not just because you'll identify the problems that they have, the struggles that they have, which you might already know, but you're going to get their words. So you can use their words in your marketing and in your messaging. That's why it's especially important, because if you can use their terminology, that's how you get people interested. Because, for example, people throw on authenticity all the time, right? But there might be other words related to authenticity that people actually relate to as well more. That's just an example, but it's just something like that to keep in mind. The other piece of this is you can't just assume you know people's problems. Even if you were them at one point, you can't just assume you know all of their problems and how they prefer to phrase it. This is why we have to ask them. Just don't assume a problem based only on your strength. And this is something I see a lot. So people will, for example, say, well, I am really good at email, therefore I'm going to solve the problem of messy inboxes, which is great. And people do have messy inboxes. But don't assume that is your ideal client's problem. That's why you ask them. That's why you ask them what's their biggest problem. And also understand that people have priorities. Even if it is a problem of theirs, it might be on a lower priority than the things on top. So that's also really important to consider. I will give you an example for me. When when I did some simple VA work in the beginning too. And something I very quickly learned is that a lot of people did not care a lot. They were just like, yeah, email, whatever, literally low priority, but can you fix my website? And that was like their biggest thing. They're just like, I want someone to fix my website. I don't care about email. Like, I know it's messy. I don't care. Focus on this. So this is, again, why we do market research. You can figure out what their priorities are. Super, super important. That freebie resource that I have, if you put that freebie in the chat, I will be sending that to you. That'll walk you through exactly how you can do market research and exactly what questions you can be asking. And again, using their words in all your content, general messaging, landing pages, stories, whatever it is, that just connects with them more and gets them to be more like, this person gets me. I want their help. So does anyone have any questions about that? I know that one can sometimes be a little more. Feel free to unmute if you have a question.
I do have a question.
Awesome. Let's go.
So something I'm struggling with is the market research, because like I've done my investigating and I go in like different Facebook groups with like, I'm really trying to focus on dog trainers. So I do my research in dog trainers. There's certain people who have put in the group like, oh, I'm looking for social media management. And that's kind of what I'm seeing. But before, obviously, the warm leads, when they're saying it, it's almost like I can't find a way to properly ask them. And like the survey works, but sometimes still people see it as like a sales tactic. So it's the market research is something I'm struggling with, because it's like I can't get their true.
Can you ask like basic questions in the actual groups themselves? Like just post a question.
Oh yeah, I guess.
Because people usually are more willing to answer that in Facebook groups. So they'll just answer a question that you have, and then you can, discuss it.
Yeah, some people just see it as like, oh my God, like she's a business, get away from me, which makes no sense, because I'm like, you're also a business. Like, this
is what happens in Facebook groups. This is
why
I avoid Facebook
or
groups.
even on like Instagram and like where I'm finding like my clients and stuff like that. It's just like market research has just been weird. So I guess like just the question is, like you said, like asking questions, like I didn't even think of that, like different.
Yeah. Well, I mean, another simple ways. First of all, if you want to be really honest about your intentions up front, I say do it. Like you can literally reach out to someone, and if you really want, like people are willing to help you as long as they think you're not selling them something. So if you literally go up and be like, I promise, not trying to sell you anything, I really just want some information. I would love if you could help me out. And that's you just being like I swear, like if you see me selling, then I've lied.
Right.
At least right now. And then when you build a relationship with someone, eventually they could want to hire you themselves. But that's just, you're allowed to be upfront. I think that's totally like, because I know you're not at this point, you're just trying to get information out of them, from them. I say out of them, that sounds rude.
Right. I know,
But you're trying to get information from them, and you want to help them. And unfortunately, the whole I want to help you thing has also been beaten into the ground. So saying that doesn't always help. But literally telling people, it's like, I'm not trying to sell you. I swear to God. I just, I'm really just trying to figure out where I'm going with my business, and this would really help me out. I think it's honest. I'm okay with that. People have come up to me and done that same thing, and I've been like, yeah, sure, of course, whatever. I'll help you out. So that's usually what it takes, because when you're not upfront, like if you're, unfortunately, because a lot of this has been beaten into the ground, Facebook groups, people will totally just people will just will totally ignore you for some reason. You can ask direct questions in Facebook groups. I will say that the one question you don't want to ask is just, what struggles are you having on social media? Because as soon as you mention that, they automatically are like, this person's trying to sell me something because of all the phishing stuff. But they do. So try and phrase it a little bit differently, as you just asking a question and getting people to interact. And people on Facebook groups will flock to those questions. If you've ever seen Facebook when people just ask questions and you see like thousands of responses. Yeah.
They'll be like, what color do you think I should get this carpet? And then like everyone apparently has an opinion on some random person's carpet.
Literally. All right. I've also done like, if you feel weird about asking the question, giving your response to it sometimes loosens them up, being like, you know, if you were to ask, say, like, you know, what are your struggles on social media? I struggle with XYZ. And it's almost like being more vulnerable yourself so that they feel like it's just a discussion. Of course, you're naturally going to get the people who decide they want to help you.
Right.
Whatever. That's just something to expect. I see Kenyona asked a question in the chat. She's a new entrepreneur and virtual assistant, so congratulations. I'm really glad that this is going to help for you, as I hope it is. And your pain point is narrowing down to a niche. Ooh, I want to actually hear from the class first. How did you guys choose your niches? And now we're talking niche right now, not ideal client right now. So how did you all choose your niches? Anyone want to offer their little advice?
Hi. I chose mine based on what I was like really interested in, and like I guess I knew that I'd be interested in and be more passionate about, because I like really enjoy the fitness side of things and focusing on self-development and positive stuff. So I went with that, but I also went with the travel bloggers and photographers as well, because I wanted to like do a bit of both and find out who I might prefer to work with. But I definitely really enjoy traveling as well, so thought I'd just give a bit of both a try. So yeah, that's my reason.
Yeah, I think that's a normal thing. A lot of new VAs will start out and have a few different interests. I think that's totally okay. What I'm going to recommend for anyone who's kind of in that same field, so Kenyona, if you have like some niches that you are interested in, but you're not sure which one to do, my top tip
that's
is
exactly it.
Yeah, that's always it, isn't it? Write down what those are. So usually most people will have somewhere between like 2 and 5. I've had someone come to me and be like, I have 5 completely different areas I'd like to work in. So write out an ideal client profile for all of them. And the reason I say that, like literally go through when I send the freebie, literally go through the entire profile for all of them. The reason I say to do that is because you're very quickly going to recognize which one or ones you're more interested in by doing that. Because there's going to be some that you're going to be like, wait, I don't have answers to any of this. I don't know any of this, versus others you're just like, I can fill out all of this by heart. I know this. And those are the people that you're automatically gonna be like, yeah, I know this one. And I have my clients do that too, and it usually helps them. So I highly recommend doing that. And if you're still down,
thank you.
Yeah, of course, no problem. And if you're still down to a couple different options, then you can test things out a little bit. Like you can, it just makes it a little more difficult in terms of messaging. I recommend trying one particular one out and seeing how that goes. Like which one can you help more? Or maybe what a lot of people do is say, do market research into both and see which one needs your specific services more.
Okay.
Yeah. So like with the email example, see, you know, if you were to say you're really good at email and that's something you really want to be doing for people, you can see which one of those niches needs email services more.
Okay.
So that'll be helpful.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone else have, I know we were talking about niche there again, but anyone else have any questions about market research? Because I know, again, that's kind of something that, does anyone else here struggle with market research or hasn't really done it because they're scared? Yes, no? Feel free to put in the chat if you want.
I 100% haven't done it for myself yet, so I look forward to the freebie. But I've done it for clients.
Oh yeah, awesome! It's easier for clients. Always easier.
I don't know why, but exactly as you said, it's always easier to do it for clients.
It's easier to do social media for clients, easier to do their emails, easier to do market research for them. And then you get to yourself and you're like, what? And again, a lot of that has to do, and this is why I recommend writing everything down to, a lot of that actually has to do with like subjective versus objective. When you're dealing with a client, everything is outside of yourself already. So you can look at it more objectively and do what needs to be done. Versus when it's you, everything's in your head. So now you're looking at it from a very subjective point of view, and that gets you confused. So I always recommend whenever you're doing anything in your business, thinking about anything, writing it down or saying it out loud, just recording yourself. That way you can hear it or read it externally and judge it that way. See if it makes sense. I recommend that for everyone. That's just a little mindset trick. All right. Okay. Away from problems. So once you've done, and again, these are all like really basic business foundations everyone needs to do at some point. You can still run your business while you're figuring this out. But this will just help you like actually get to those goals. Now, of course, once you figure out the problems, what solution do you provide? So a lot of people kind of go about this the other way. You'll see a lot of people start with the solution, start with, I'm really good at this, so that's my solution. Therefore, the problem I'm solving is this. You really shouldn't be doing that. You want to start with, I'm good at these things. What's the problem they have? Can any of these things help me solve that problem, and how? So that's the way you kind of want to be looking at things. So if you are maybe confused about what you offer, maybe what services you offer, the packages, any of that, kind of run through that exercise. Like, start with, what am I good at? What can I do? Write it all down, and write down like how good you are at any of it, or how good you think you are. Write down what their problem is, the problems you're solving, and then see, can any of these things be used for it, and how can they be used for it? And that'll help you build these packages. But yeah, how can you solve the problems that you've identified from them? What types of offers do they need? And this is something you can ask in market research. Do they want, like, again, do they want like email only packages? Do they want research packages? Do they want social media packages? Most people do. Do they want just engagement packages? Like, there's lots of different options. And this is where you kind of figure out, you use like what problems they give you to kind of create the packages. And then this is also where market research and knowing your ideal client comes in handy. Is it within budget for your ideal client? And naturally, you're going to want your ideal client to be someone who's willing to invest. I think that's kind of true for everyone. It's going to be someone who's willing to invest, but you will find some people are just going to try and target markets that just don't have money. And unfortunately, that can be a little tough. So you could, in those cases, if you know that they don't have a lot of money, offer some smaller packages, but, and I say this with a big but, generally it's better to, make sure that you have a market that's ready to invest in the offers that you're putting out there. So that's really, really important to understand. It's really important to understand kind of what their income is. So when you're doing market research, that's a question that you don't need to know their exact income, but just kind of figuring out like what their budget is, like what they're willing to spend, is usually important. Half the time on market research, people will answer the lower end, let's be honest. But it at least gives you an idea of where their mind's at. I know that's a tough one because people will try and lowball you and all that. But the first thing you want to focus on is obviously what solution you're providing. Then you can focus on, is it something they'll actually buy? Is it something they're willing to invest in? So does anyone have any questions on this piece? This is kind of more about creating packages.
I do have a quick question. So I know you said like figuring out this with research, and I've definitely realized that one thing I've learned is that people don't want to be sold, but people want to be told what to do. And so with packages, is it better to be more specific? So I've been doing like just kind of like allotted hours and how I sell my packages, but I've realized, like you said, like people have a target issue that they usually want to be sold. So have you noticed anything just with your research that like people like more specific and specialized? Like if I just did like all things social media and then like all things email and etc.
You're going to have two sides of these particular, these clients, right? There's going to be, I call the bad side. This is like the not so good side. These are the people that don't really know what they want. They just want someone to help them. These are the people you generally don't want as clients often because they tend to be disorganized. They tend to treat you like an employee. Then there's the other side of people, and those kinds of people know exactly what they want, which is why specializing can be really, really helpful. It doesn't mean you can't offer anything outside of that specialization, but right. In terms of marketing, if you're marketing that you do a specific thing, you've probably seen around people who do Pinterest managing. It's just Pinterest. People who do like just research, people who do only lead generation and engagement. And the reason why this works is because when people are looking to solve a specific issue, if they're, for example, searching, they're going to go for the person who says they do lead generation versus the general VA who also does lead generation, right? Because it's assumed when you're specializing that it's something you're good at. Besides the fact that they don't want to deal with all the fluff usually. This isn't true for everyone. You're going to have some people who just want a little smattering of everything, and that's okay. as well. But most of the time you're going to find people want something specific. And something else you'll probably notice, and this is true for a lot of things, you're going to find a lot of people deal with referrals, which is why I think connecting with each other and connecting with other people, networking, is going to be really, really helpful. Because, and this is something major, if you ever deal with coaches, I know photographers do this too, because it's a small world. There's a lot of industries that do this. They like referrals. People will go to their fellow friends in the industry and be like, have you worked with someone who does this? Can you refer them to me? That's what I did to get my VAs. That's what my coaches have done. So this is something really important to keep in mind. So network with each other. So like if you have a specialization that another VA doesn't have, then you guys can create a deal where it's like, if someone comes up to you and needs this thing, let's work together. Like, you can refer them to me, I'll refer back. That's something you can definitely do, and that has worked. And it works because it's kind of automatic social proof. You have someone vouching for you, and people like that. Even if you don't have any testimonials, you have someone vouching for you, and that's important. And again, make connections with everyone. And that's just going to be true all over the place. But what was I even talking about? I totally went on a tangent. Oh yeah.
We were asking about, like, I asked about like specific packages, more specialized and specific rather than.
Yeah, the specialization is just going to help, mostly in terms of being searchable. So if you want people coming to you, being specialized is going to help you the most. If you're okay with doing outreach, then you don't have to. Or if you have enough social proof, that's also going to help you. But until then, being specialized just helps. Again, that doesn't mean you can't have packages behind the scenes where you offer other things. And this is just my recommendation. You'll see general VAs who do just fine because they make the right connections. But if you're struggling with that, then specializing is going to, it also helps with your content, because now all of your content is going to be about one specific thing. Well, not one specific thing. It's going to be about a lot of things, but you can get way more detailed in your actual content and marketing. Like, again, for Pinterest people, it's like, they don't need to worry about Instagram marketing tips. They don't have to do all that broad brushstroke surface level stuff. They can be like, let's dig into Pinterest, and people will follow them because they're like, I want to know Pinterest. So that's really helpful for your content, and it just gives you always know what you can post about. So that's helpful.
Right.
Again, specialization helps in a lot of different ways. I know it can be hard when you don't really know what you want to do. And that's okay as well. Just kind of start to think about maybe what you're best at, and maybe what you can eventually gear yourself towards what you're already doing the most for clients, and maybe focus your content around that stuff, so you can start to test and see if that gets more traction for you. That's just the way I would look at that.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Anyone else have any questions about whatever it is? Oh yeah, packages solution you're providing? Just so everyone knows too, I actually do have and this is unfortunately not a free resource. It's a $15 resource, but it is a package creation spreadsheet tool. It does all the math for you. You basically just have to enter what you would want your hourly rate to be, the time when you would spend on a certain task, and basic information like that. And then it does the math for you to help you create your package pricing, essentially, and help you put your packages together. So if that's something you're interested in, let me know. You can put that in the chat too. You can write, I don't know, download, and I can follow up with you about that. It's a useful tool.
I've got a question. Sorry, John.
Yeah, go ahead.
So packages is something I've always not quite understood. So with VAs, there's normally you pay hourly, so people pay as you go. And then you've got retainer, which is they pay in advance, and they're like, okay, I want a 30-hour a month retainer, blah, blah, blah. And then you can decide to carry over or whatever. And then the last one's package based or project based. So I know for website designers and graphic designers, that's a lot easier, because it's okay, here's set deliverables, here's the price. But as a VA, I try to think of it, how would I price that? As in, because everyone says that's the best pricing model to go for, because actually you try and make more money from it by saying, oh,
you're also charging for your expertise. You're also charging for your expertise when you do that.
And not just your hours. But it's confusing, because it's how do you do that?
So the way I do it, using my particular spreadsheet, it has a lot to do with understanding how advanced versus beginner you are at certain tasks within the package. And then you would essentially upcharge for the advanced ones versus the beginner ones. It's kind of how that works. So it's kind of like if this takes, this advanced task takes 2 hours, I would almost do time and a half, so to speak. And that's how that would play out. So you can kind of mess around with that. I know that's complicated. Ultimately, what you really want to consider with pricing, pricing packages, I mean, specifically, it will come down to like, how much time would you essentially spend on that package? So you can kind of essentially calculate how long would it take me to do any of these tasks per month? And what do I think is a reasonable rate to be earning for that amount of time? Because you have to consider, I'm going to be doing work outside of this running my business, so it has to cover that as well. How much time is it taking up per month? Like, you only have a certain amount of time per month, right? So what I'll normally see is people will create, for example, basic social media packages that are kind of like maybe 2 custom graphics per week. They'll post 3 posts per week, no caption writing involved. So they have to do the captions plus 30 minutes of engagement per day, something as basic as that. And that'll be like $475 to start. That's the starting rate for some people when people are just starting out. Because ultimately, whatever it was, you calculated that package out and it comes out to like 19 hours a month. And if you were to do the math on that, you would realize that that is super reasonable for the amount of work you'd have to put in if you had, the amount of work you'd have to put into that package. Because ultimately the goal is, if you're doing this full time, is you want to hit about 5K. So you can cover business expenses and taxes and then also pay yourself, which is the rest of that. Those first 2 take up a lot of money. So to hit that 5K, you really have to make sure that you are charging enough. And with that, I guess on an hourly rate, if you're charging any less than $30 an hour, you're going to be hard pressed to hit 5K a month if you want to talk that specific. And I know some people start like much lower than that. So just putting that there. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
And I'm going to recommend to everyone, if you don't have packages, and I'm not talking hourly packages, you don't have like actual packages that are more specific. The reason I recommend it is because hourly packages are easily taken advantage of. You'll find yourself working weird hours unless you specified hours in your contract that you can work. People will throw things at you last minute. It tends to be like that. You tend to get those sorts of clients who they don't want something specific because they want to be able to throw things at you last minute and change things up. You can still be flexible in a set package. You just have to, this is you setting your boundaries. Knowing what you're doing ahead of time gives you the chance to build your own schedule rather than them building your schedule. That's why I recommend it. And I know that's tough at first. Again, like if you feel like you're turning away potential people, when that happens, but you're turning away the people that you probably wouldn't want to work with anyway. And I think it's okay also to be flexible on that. If you like working with someone and that's how they want to work and you're okay with that, that's fine. But you have to make sure that your boundaries are set. Like, I only work this hour to this hour, all of that. Okay, let's move along. Moving along. All right. Oh yeah, I was still on the solutions you provide. Oh no, I didn't change the title. That's what happened. Well, I'm pretty sure that's exactly what happened. Nope. Okay, apparently I need a VA to help me make these slides, so hit me up. Anyway, no, this is still on the solutions piece, actually. The idea was supposed to be that this is supposed to be your specialization. Let's move along to where do you want to go? We were talking about this earlier, but the most important piece to me, and I tell people this all the time, is having a vision, a goal, dreams, whatever you want to call it. People say it in different ways. And I always like to break it down into a vision for your life, which is probably the easiest one to do. We all have some vision of where we want our life to be in 5-10 years. Vision for your business, which is more like how do you want your business to grow? What do you want it to turn into? What do you want to be doing? Will you have a team? That sort of thing. And what's your vision for your clients? And this is the one people tend to forget. It's essentially, what transformation are you offering to your clients? What world do you want them to live in? And that's a really important one to do because, first of all, it helps you write down the transformation. And that transformation should be in all of your marketing and messaging. And I know it can be as simple as you're going to have time to spend with your family if your ideal client has a family, or you'll have time to, play with your dogs. or dog entrepreneur, whatever that might be. But really get specific on that vision, because that helps you really talk about it more, and understand the world you're trying to create for your clients. And if you're not passionate about what you're doing, then this is going to be really hard. Obviously, once you have that greater vision, you would break it down to smaller steps. So let's say you had like, a long-term vision, 5-year, 10-year usually, how about, okay, so how can I take steps towards it in 1 year? How can I take steps towards it this month? How about this week? And I always go from top down. Start with the big one, then make sure that all of your goals line up along the way. If you're doing anything that doesn't align with it, it's probably not helpful. If it's not getting you towards that goal, it's probably something you're wasting time on. So yeah, break that vision down to smarter goals and steps. If you've ever heard of SMART goals, if you haven't, feel free to put that in the chat. I can send that. I don't have a resource for it, but I can send you like a link real quick or something, or you could look up SMART goals. It's kind of a commonly known thing. Just very helpful so that you can make sure that all your goals are specific, they're measurable, they're actionable, I can't remember what R stands for, and they're timely. Essentially putting numbers and specifics in your goal. Otherwise, it's not really a goal. It's just kind of like, I want to do this. Not really helpful. Let's see. And then understanding kind of how, and this is part of vision too, how is your business going to evolve? All of this can change. Everything we've gone over, by the way, can change. You can always go back. You should always be doing market research, always be reevaluating, all that fun stuff. But really consider how you want your business to evolve, because let's be honest, it's not going to stay the same for the next 5 years. Something is going to change. If you think that it's just going to be that for 5 years, just start thinking about what that evolution is going to look like. Because if you don't do that, and if you think, oh, I'm just gonna be doing this exact thing for 5-10 years, you're gonna fall behind. Something's gonna happen. You're not gonna be earning the income you want, even if you were once steady, because you didn't think about, well, how can I grow with the times? How can I change? What do I really want to be doing 5 years down the line? It will all change, but just start to understand where you kind of want to go with your business. If you don't have a growth mindset in your own business, you're gonna be hard pressed to even keep it consistent. And that's just more long term. I know if you're still dipping your toes in the sand, you're still trying to think about it, you're probably like, I'm not even thinking about how to evolve my business. Like, where's it going to go? But just something to consider as you go along. Any questions on that? Does that make sense? That one's pretty easy. All good? Cool. Let's move along. Okay, and this is the important part. I know this is very vague. I'll go a little bit more in detail, but now this is the how will you get there part. So now that you have, who you are, your clients are, ideal client is, what problem they have, how you want to solve it, and your vision. Now, how are you going to get to that end result? And your vision's probably going to incorporate some of those pieces from before as well. And this is all about the strategy. So now that, again, you have all that information, this is the piece where you sit down and you think, okay, I want to get here. These are my clients who would be paying me. This is the problem I have, the solution I'm offering for that. Now, what can I do to get that solution in their hands so I can achieve that goal? Is essentially what that boils down to. And this part should come after you reflect on everything else. Because if you try and create a strategy without having any of that, it's probably going to be a copy. It's probably going to be a copycat strategy that someone else has used. You're not going to understand it. It might work temporarily, but it might not feel aligned. It might stop working down the line because you don't know why you're doing it. You were just doing it because someone else did. Or you'll try it and someone said it worked for them and you find it just doesn't work for you because you didn't think about whether it actually aligned with everything else. So it's really all about figuring out how all of these moving parts play together. So this is obviously the reason why this is so vague is because it's very specific. Anything you come up with here is super specific to what you've identified. So figuring out where your ideal clients are. Like, are they actually on Instagram? Are they on Facebook? Are they on LinkedIn? Do they not hang out online at all? Which would be difficult for a VA to actually target at, but it's one of those things to consider. So where do you need to be? Should you be creating content every single day of the week, or should it be 4 times a week? What do they prefer? you know, do you actually like creating content? Is it something you're good at? Maybe you could do more of it. Are you a singer? Maybe you can incorporate that into your marketing to make it more unique. You know, it's all of the stuff we've identified before plays a part in your strategy. So rather than asking so much, do you have any questions? Does anyone have, I guess, questions about their specific strategy? Anything that's going on, they're like, I don't know what to do. Can you help me? So let's kind of go from there. Oh, and Sierra also said she has a SMART Goals Roadmap Planner freebie that she can share. So if anyone wants that, type it in the chat so she can share it with you. But yeah, anyone, any issues with their own strategy? This is your chance to ask a question. No? Okay. Okay. Feel free to interrupt me down the line if you have a question, or if you come up with it later. Can feel free to DM me. Usually I'm there for quick tips and advice. But again, the idea being that obviously you know, this is something you hear all the time, but you need a strategy, and you need a strategy that's based on all that other stuff you've identified. Because if you're just copying someone, you're going to find very quickly it doesn't work. So if you've ever found that you're just, yes, Gabby said she wants the goal planners here. But we will find very quickly, if you see these strategies, like someone says, post 4 times a week, post at this specific time, you know, post about these things, do educational content first, and then do inspirational content. And you hear all these strategies that tell you to do those things. That might not work for your audience. It might not work for you. It might feel completely like, what am I, like, this doesn't really work for me. Why is no one liking my stuff? Why is no one interacting? Why is no one DMing me? It's because usually you pick a strategy that you're just like, oh, this worked for someone, let's do it. Does anyone run into that situation before? I feel like I did. I know when I started out. Yeah, it's the easiest way to do things sometimes when you're just starting. So while you're figuring all the other stuff out. And Sierra says you can follow her on Instagram, so she can get the link. The link in her bio has that goal roadmap planner freebie if anyone wants it. Anyway, any questions so far? How you feeling about all that business foundation stuff? Sierra says 1 second. I'm trying to, I feel like she's trying to ask a question or something, but I don't know.
Oh, I'm like talking and it's on mute. God, I suck.
Good.
Can you do me, I know you're gonna, this is gonna be a replay, but can you put up the strategy slide really quick?
Yeah, I am.
I missed the one.
It's literally just my notes. I tend to just do more talking than putting things on slides. So the idea again is like, how do all the moving parts from previously play together? Because you want to make sure they do. Once you have everything else identified, all the stuff we went through, all of them should play a part in your strategy. The ideal client, the problems they have, the solution you're providing, who you are, and your vision too. Because obviously the whole point of the strategy thing is to get you to that vision, get your clients to that vision, get your business to that vision. So if you don't have a strategy, you're just going to be someone running on a hamster wheel, not going anywhere, or like running in circles, like a dog chasing its tail, like that, completely pointless. Yeah, so questions on that? Are you good, Sierra?
Yeah, I do have a question, but I don't
Yeah.
even know if I know how to word it. Because
We'll just
that's the biggest thing I'm struggling with right now is I feel like my strategy is all over the place. And I think it's partially because you made such a good point when you were like, don't do it because it's your strength, like listen to what they're saying. So I just feel like I'm trying new things as well as doing my current things, and it's been working. But I just feel like creating a strategy is, I don't know, I've just been having so much difficulty with it because I feel like I can't get it concrete. So I feel like it's hard to figure out what works, and sometimes it might work for someone and not necessarily another client, and so on.
I'm a fan of minimalistic, like having a minimalist strategy, like keeping it as simple as possible. Because obviously we created this business so we could have some freedom and flexibility, right? So if you're putting hours and hours into things, and that's just how it's going to be forever, like you don't want to kind of build that sort of relationship with your business where you like you have to put all those hours in even down the line.
Right.
So obviously minimalist strategy, very basically it comes down to like your soft marketing, which is your content, wherever that might be posted. It's not always on Instagram. It could be on Facebook. Again, depends where your people are. That can be posting to Facebook groups. That's also content. So that's your soft marketing. So that's the stuff that's kind of more attraction marketing, as they might call it. And then there's your, so-called like cold marketing, hard marketing. That's the outreach. That's the outreach. That's the direct promotion. That's the, it's the copywriting, their sales pages. And you have to have some form of both. Like in any marketing, you're going to have some form of both. So when it comes to strategy, you just got to figure out like what, like first comes first, like, in terms of your actual content, and the soft marketing piece of it, like what do they want to see? What do I want to create? Is there an intersection between the two? That it really kind of comes down just to that. Do they like to talk? If they like to talk and like share their input, maybe posting questions in Facebook groups is your way of interacting with them and having discussions in there. A lot of this is going to be trial and error. You're going to try something and you might realize, oh, this didn't work. And then you have to change it. But the easiest way to refine a strategy is to try something first. And then when you see if it works or doesn't, you can then refine it and be like, well, this didn't work. Let's try it. Now I know. Now you can like, X that out, and that gives you a little more clarity. And then on the hard marketing side, that's kind of the outreach and stuff. Everyone should be sort of doing some form of direct promotion and outreach in some way. It's just kind of figuring out the balance. I'm someone who doesn't mind reaching out to people in DMs. I have zero problem with it. And that's how I personally find the most success. I think it's always going to be a good opportunity for all of you guys to engage and again, make connections with people, so that for you guys, that's what your hard marketing is a lot of, or actually even soft, is going to be a lot of making those networking, making those connections so that you can be a referral. And so that they know that you're there if they need you, because a lot of being a VA comes down to timing. Like you want to be there when someone needs you to be. They could have needed you 3 months ago, and if you weren't there, you might have missed out, which is going to happen all the time. But making connections is probably going to be one of your biggest assets. So just literally going into conversations, just trying to make connections with all sorts of people in your ideal client niche, and people as VAs too, that you could potentially collaborate with. And I've seen people, VAs, do this all the time, where they'll collaborate with another VA, and they'll basically like offer each other services if someone were to ask them for that sort of service, because they offer two different services essentially. That's why specialization helps too. Or also someone could be like, they're not my ideal client, but I can, point you in the direction of someone else. So it's fun to build those connections with people too. And I do that with coaches. Like we have coaches do that too. Like we were kind of like, I didn't want to work with this person. Like this person wasn't really in my audience, but maybe they're in yours. And so we'll kind of pass them on. It's referrals. Referrals are super important, and you'll build those as you talk to more and more people. And the more people you're able to talk to and connect with, I know some of us are introverts. I am one as well. But you can still make connections as an introvert. I think we've learned that.
That helped me so much.
I'm glad. Yeah, the thinking about it as soft versus hard marketing is also an easy way to think about it. It's being like, how can I attract people to me versus how can I do the outreach? Eventually, you'd want to just be on the attraction side, but it doesn't start out that way.
Right.
It rarely starts out that way unless you have a really specific niche that like no one else covers, and they need your help. Or you have a specific specialization that no one else covers and people actually want. So the attraction part comes with time. So you have to actually work on the direct promo side of things, not all the time, but like in your stories, you actually talk about like, hey, I have services and I'd like to help you. These are my services. This is what I offer. Let me give you a mini training, and then end with the call to action, that sort of thing. And also reaching out to people as well. Hope that was helpful.
Yes.
Awesome. And we're kind of running. Oh, we got 15 minutes left. Oh, I might go over time if anyone wants to hang around. Let's kind of, again, anyone feel free to interrupt me if your question comes to you. It turns out I can actually see the chat in here, so feel free to chat as well. Okay, I'm moving on to the mindset foundations. And apparently this gets cut off at the bottom. That wasn't supposed to happen, but I know we talked about business foundations. I want to talk about mindset foundations. I am a mindset coach after all. This is really, really relevant. And I think this is also helpful for everyone to do. I know we talked about the vision piece, but there's a million other pieces. I call it the EARN method. Basically, like, you know, you're earning your title, you're earning your boss title. This is how you become a boss. I'm going to go through each of these individually. So the first piece we already talked about this. As you can tell, I really like talking about vision, and there is a reason for it. When you have your vision, it really helps give you clarity when you know exactly where you're going. So again, for me, I know I want to run a convention. Therefore, I created these monthly events because of that. I was like, this is a great way for me to lead up to running conventions, and it's a good lead magnet. It's a double whammy. So that's why I do these every month. What's the chat saying? Something in the chat. I don't know why it's not popping up anymore, even after I said it did. What's your question?
No, it's not a question. I was just seeing if people related to like the fact that a strategy just feels like a full-time thing in itself. It takes so long. Like I hate it. Like it's the biggest thing
for a second.
I don't mind doing. So I was just saying that with a little crying face in the group.
You have to be as strict as you think it is. I mean, trust me, I get it. Making a strategy is and I don't sit down and I don't like always type down like, I'm going to do this, post this many times per week on these specific days and at this specific time. Half the time I'm like, okay, this week, I think I'm going to do 5 times a week. What days are the best to post on that? Probably these days. I usually check my insights for that just to get, make sure I'm on the right track. And then sometimes I'll decide I don't want to post the 5th, and I'm like, okay, we're fine. Like it's a loose strategy. The idea is kind of giving you a sense of like about where should I be and about what should I be doing. I think the more strict you are with yourself, half the time, the more likely you are to fail. So if you're really, really stringent about like these particular strategies, you're generally gonna have a problem. For most of us, not everyone. But I think most people kind of struggle with that. Making a strategy is a full-time job. But keep it simple to start out. That's why I can recommend writing it down, because you're writing your whole strategy down, you're realizing I'm doing too much. Like for me, it was like, okay, post a blog one time a week, post a podcast 1 time a week, post on Instagram 7 times a week. So I decided that was a good idea. 2 of them had to be reels. Let's also do a live 1 time a week. And I was going through and going all the stuff that I decided I had to do, and I was like, this is too much. Was any of it really helping me? So I basically cut off everything but the Instagram posting. It was what I ended up doing. I was also posting on like Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter, and I cut out all of it. I was like, I'm only posting on Instagram now. Sometimes I'll pop into a Facebook group maybe. And I'm not going to do blogs and podcasts until I feel like I want to. It's because it wasn't generating anything at that time. Didn't seem particularly helpful. I was having more success just talking to people. So now the majority of my job and my daily task is literally just talking to people. I'm literally just like, okay, and I have 4 hours left to DM. And it really simplified the strategy. But yeah, that's usually a pretty helpful way to kind of think about it. Write down all your tasks and see if any of them you feel like just like, I don't know if I need to be doing this right now. Maybe down the line you can hire someone to do it for more visibility. But if it hasn't gotten you anywhere yet, maybe you need to rethink it. I know you just started, so it's kind of a different story. But like, for example, if you're an SEO expert, maybe doing blogging is good because it shows your SEO expertise. But otherwise, maybe it's not. If you're not a copywriter, maybe that's not what you should be doing. If you're not a web designer, maybe you don't need a website to start. And I say that to people too. I'm like, websites are kind of moot point, because half the time you're going to make sales just through people booking calls with you through that link and through like DMs and emails. I know a lot of people who don't have proper websites and they're doing just fine. And I know that not everyone, I like having a website. That's just my opinion. That's just my personal, like, I just liked having one. But just if you don't have one yet and you're worried about it, you don't have to, I promise. Feeling good?
Yeah.
All right, moving on. All right. Okay. So this obviously, like, we've already talked about this a little bit. I recommend, and this is like, I'm actually giving you specific things you can do. Monthly goal setting. Every time you get to a new month, you can do a new quarter. You can really break it down however you want. Set goals. Because if you don't set goals, it's going to be, again, hard to get anywhere. It can be a high reaching goal. It can be a stretch goal. That's completely fine. If you don't hit a goal, it's not like the world ends. But it just gives you something to aim towards and makes you focus more your whatever tasks you're doing more on those things. And your goals can even be like, this month, I really want to focus on just serving the clients I have. Yes, I want to get more clients, but I'm going to focus really heavily on just serving my clients. Therefore, you're probably going to spend more time on client work. Stuff like that you can really think about. And then just reflections and discussions. There are, things people do, like they do quarterly reviews. You can get in discussions with your friends and just talk about how a month or months have been going, and maybe talk about why they went that way, what you can do differently. A very, very common reflection exercise that pretty much every business owner does is the stop, start, continue, which is basically what should I stop doing, what should I start doing, and what should I continue doing. Very, very basic way to do exactly that. And I think you'll hear any business coach will probably recommend that to you in some form. And I apparently, again, this is why I need a VA. There you go. Here we go. Accountability is another big one that I always recommend to everyone. And whether it comes to coaches, friends, or even just checking in with yourself, you have to know how you work best to figure out what type of accountability you need. I do best when someone's yelling at me. So that's why I have 2 coaches to do that. I don't mean actually yelling. I mean like kind of yelling in my ear and being like, don't be stupid. Again, it's one thing to kind of know where you want to go and make a plan to get there. And it's another thing to actually do it. And I think that's a problem everyone runs into, is creating a strategy, making a plan, having a vision. They're like, I'm all ready to go. And then they don't do it. The doing actually falls short. They feel like they run out of time, things come up, all this other stuff. So the idea of this is again, it's accountability. No, like, do I need to discipline myself more? Or do I do better when I have someone else disciplining me? Maybe in that case, you need a coach. Maybe you need a mentor. Maybe you need your friend to check in on you every day. So this is quite easy. Regular check-ins from yourself and others to see where you are. Whenever you set a goal, you usually will set a time. So make sure that you're setting checkpoints along the way of being like, where am I at with this goal? Because if you set a goal and you don't do that, then the goal times the end deadline is going to come and you're like, whoa, what happened? And I always do end of month evaluations. Again, I know time is kind of it's something that not everyone wants to focus on, but it does help to just kind of set time periods, whether it's quarterly, monthly, weekly, whatever that might be. Accountability, super, super important. Make sure you have some sort of accountability partner or system in place, or else you're going to struggle. Even if sometimes for me, my accountability is my alarms. I have a million alarms for a million different things. I even have an alarm that I set for like 10 a.m. because sometimes I procrastinate in the mornings. And so I have an alarm for like 10 a.m. that's like, Dami, get to work, like go work. And it's just me reminding myself to go work. And that helps me. So does anyone else have any forms of accountability they use, whether that's other people or themselves? I'm kind of curious. Anyone want to share?
I think it's kind of jumping back into what you were saying earlier, and that's the engagement with other VAs, social media managers, this and that. I have a few VAs that I'm kind of always just checking in with in the DM.
Hey.
And we, and it's funny because it's not even like necessarily spoken out loud or in the DMs, but it's kind of just like, hey, I love your post. Like, that's great engagement. And they'll be like, awesome. Like, I loved your story today. And it's just really encouraging to see like, oh, they're posting stuff. I like that. Like, I want to do that. That went well. So
having that connection with other VAs is so important for you guys. Also, it's going to help your imposter syndrome to have a community of other VAs, because it's so easy to feel like it's only you who's failing because you're like looking at these like VAs who are doing well, these coaches who are doing well, or whatever it might be. But if you have a community of others kind of on the same space as you, you'll very quickly see it's like, oh, it's not just me. It's not just me.
Totally.
Yeah, exactly. So not only networking with VAs for the sake of referrals, but also networking just to build, like Amber said, that community of people. And maybe, you know, if you connect with other VAs who are like, I would love a coach, but I can't afford it, then y'all could be your accountability partners. And sometimes all a coach really does is accountability. Let's be completely honest. To be completely honest, I mean, being the coach, sometimes that's half the time that's what it is. It's just holding them accountable. And then they're like, whoa, I actually hit my goal. And it's like, yeah, I wonder why. It was literally just the accountability. So if you have someone to do that for you, that's really helpful. I just want to let you guys know too, I know we're running low on time. I'm going to keep going and finish it off, but if you need to pop out, that's fine. Before we pop out though, I wanted to get a quick picture of us. So I'm going to screenshot it. So I just want to get myself in position. Yeah, if anyone wants to show their face, you don't have to. If you don't, I'm going to draw a smiley face on your thing though, probably. So just be warned. Cool, there's my print screen. All right, everyone, smile. Perfect. Thank you. This is the first time I finally remembered to do that, so I didn't just take a screenshot of us awkwardly looking like.
Yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, if you guys need to pop out, that's completely fine, but I'm just going to keep going. Awesome.
My laptop's about to die, so if I just randomly disappear, like, thanks.
That's fine. Oh, also feel like if you are gonna leave, if you could just leave kind of like what your biggest takeaway was in the chat, that would be awesome.
Okay, I'll do that just in case.
Awesome. Okay, moving on from accountability. We're almost done, I promise. Reflection is the R in earn. But essentially the reflection part is mindset work. And that's the part that most people kind of avoid. They just want to focus on the business and they think, if I hit 5K months and if I get X number of clients, then I'm going to be happy. When often that's not how it ends up working, because they haven't really dug deep into, first of all, what they really want. They haven't really broken past a lot of the mindset blocks. So if you ignore imposter syndrome, but you still manage to get clients, you're still going to have imposter syndrome and it sucks. So this is the part I always remind people, like, you really have to do the reflection piece. You have to think like, how did I feel about that launch? Or like, that client I worked with, how has it been going? Truly and honestly, this is all just for you. You don't have to share it anywhere. It's all just for you to be honest with yourself about where you think you actually are. And I always recommend guided meditations just to kind of help with some of that. You don't have to. Journaling, I know that's kind of a scary thing. If you don't like writing, I always recommend just saying things out loud and recording. But any way to get it outside of your head is usually a good thing to do, like I mentioned. And then again, end of month reflections. And the most important part is celebrating wins. That's also a form of reflection. It's reflecting on the good things that happened. It's like what anyone else says with being great, being grateful. If you've ever done that thing at dinner that my parents made me do, which was like, the highs and lows, we would talk about what was a good thing in the day, what was a bad thing that happened today. We used to do that at our dinner table. Roses and thorns, people call it too. It's a lot of different names. It's generally celebrating wins when they happen, even if it's as small as I hit 100 followers. Yay, that's exciting. Even if it's as small as I got my first client, even if it wasn't a big one, it's still the first client. Like, celebrate those wins in some way. And I always like writing down like a reward for when I hit a certain goal. Like if I get this many number of people in my mastermind, then I will treat myself to XYZ. And it kind of makes me work a little bit harder, because half the time for bigger goals, I set bigger goals. I'm like, if I hit it, I will go on a weekend long trip to a ski resort or something like that. And it gets you kind of excited. Even if it's as small as like, I'm going to buy myself a bottle of champagne, or I'm going to take a day off work, whatever that might be. It's just kind of a fun way to kind of, give yourself little rewards, positive reinforcement. And then non-stop fun. This is one that people don't talk about as much, but obviously my version of fun in business has to do with making things worth it. Because, it's one thing to say that something is fun, but it's another thing to say that something is worth it. And when something is worth it, you're more willing to put effort into it. And again, we're not talking about perfect and blissful. Like nothing's ever going to be perfect. You're going to run into tough times. But if you can run into, and this is something to reflect on, if you can run into those tough times, if you can think and be like, if X, Y, Z happens, it's still worth it to me to keep at it, then you're making a good choice. It's always a good way to look at it. And obviously, like you have to kind of make all of it worth it. Your business could still be worth it, but if you create an environment for yourself that isn't pleasant, then it won't be worth it. So for example, if you basically set a standard for yourself that you're going to work 60 hours a week and that isn't what you wanted out of your business, it probably isn't going to be worth it. If you are too strict with yourself and you don't give yourself days off, even though that's something that you know you wanted to be able to do, then maybe it's not worth it. If you didn't get to spend time with your family and that's something you wanted, maybe it's not going to be worth it. So you have to build fun into your routine, both work and life, obviously. And if that means literally having to write down what things are considered fun and worth it to you, so you can literally put them on your to-do lists for work and life, then so be it. But you don't have to do that. Just really understanding, like, if you have not done anything fun this week, you've done something wrong. And I say fun again is worth it, like something that's worth it. So for me, again, it has a lot to do. I like content creation. So for me, content creation is fun. Therefore, I try to build in making reels as part of my, I try to build in brainstorming as part of my weekly routine. It's just being like, I love brainstorming. Brainstorming is so much fun. So I just love spending as much time as I can on it. So I build it into my routine. So understanding what pieces of business and life are fun and worth it to you, and really, really expanding on those, because that's what's going to give you energy and make you really, really motivated to keep going. Does anyone have maybe had a revelation or have anything they want to share that's fun for them? Because I know I shared my content creation thing, but does anyone have anything on their end? Anything that you actually like to do in your business or life? You want to share? Amber? I saw you look like you're reaching.
Oh, yes. I'm on my phone as well. So sorry if my finger is like. I agree with you. Content creation is really fun. I think that it's also a great way to figure out like what you want to do and who you want to reach. That's something that I've discovered in creating content is just recently I was like, oh, I really enjoy this. Like I love color palettes and I love marketing this and making it a brand. And that kind of helped me realize like, oh, perhaps I want to narrow down my niche to branding or marketing. So yeah, I think that even when you like treat yourself with content creation, it's a really great way to learn about what else I love doing. So yeah.
A lot of the stuff that you find fun in your business is a great way to learn. Like if you actually like talking to people in DMs, you're going to learn a lot from that. If you like creating stories, you're going to learn how to create the best stories. You like creating videos, you're going to learn. There's a lot of things. I always focus on creation because that's, I mean, I know you probably relate to me, Amber. Just fun. Not everyone finds that stuff fun, by the way. Also important to note, especially when you're coming up with your offers.
I hate content creation. Oh my God, I'm so bad at it.
Then you don't have to post that often. You really don't.
Yeah, I know. I'm just so bad. Like I'm a kind of person of like, give me a list and I'll get it done. Like I just do the back end of stuff. Like I can't come up with stuff. Like just give me a list, I'll do it. It's so bad. I'm so bad at content.
Awesome. Thank you, Kenyona, for sharing that. I saw that in the chat. I know she had to pop out. And Holly, I saw that you shared yours too. Awesome. What else was I saying? Yeah, and everyone else wants to share their big takeaways too. I got one more thing to go. One more screen. Bada bada boom. And this is something I actually put it in my mini course. This is something I talk about pretty heavily in it, but I figured I would share it here because I think it's important. And yes, I like acronyms. I live in DC, just how it is. So I call it the feed method. So this is basically, rather than figuring out, oh God, I did not mean to go there. Rather than choosing things, what you want to do, and just based on something you think you're passionate about, because passion is way overused, you want to kind of make sure it touches on all of these. And it seems obvious, but sometimes you'll go through and realize it's not your thing. And I'll kind of use an example for me. Like, for example, at one point I wanted to be a musical artist. I wanted to be a singer. So, fulfillment is the first one. Does it fill one or many of your needs? For me, that was yes. I love singing. I do need to do musical things every so often. So yes, it fills one of my needs. Enjoyment, happiness. Does it make you happy? Again, yes. Those are usually the two easiest to fill. Engagement. This is where things can sometimes fall apart. Yes, that thing can be motivating and inspiring, but does it also get you to actively engage? So if it's something that you maybe you enjoy, but you find that you procrastinate a lot on it, sometimes that's due to just imposter syndrome and fear. And sometimes it's just maybe that particular thing, I don't want to do it as often as it would require if it were my job. And this is true for anything you're doing. So if you're finding that the tasks you feel like you're doing don't fill these, then maybe you need to think, is there something specific that I could be doing that does? And then desire, is it something that you really want to do and or achieve? So the end goal is the end goal something you want? Because that's something you have to think about too. For, when I'm using the singer example just because it's easier. I was I do not want people to know me. Not it would have been easy, obviously, to even get to this point, but I was I do not want that end goal. So I was nope. Things to think about. I'm going to stop it here, but that's just something to really keep in mind, really reflect on, and for any passion you have, and really consider it for all the tasks that you offer. Because just because you're good at it and maybe you kind of like to do it, is it really something you want to be offering? Is it really something you want to be doing every day? Is it something you want to be doing regularly? And that's what those questions will kind of help you do. Does it feed you? Is what I like to say. That's why it's the feed method. Passion doesn't really mean much, to be honest. If you're passionate about something, it doesn't motivate you, doesn't inspire you, doesn't actually get you to do something. So you have to always think beyond passion. Anyway, awesome. So I'm seeing people are sharing their biggest takeaways. I really love that you're sharing this. Thank you so much. Does anyone have any final questions? Does anyone want to share their biggest takeaway and want to actually talk about it? I know I see some in the chat, but I always love to hear it when people actually speak.
A big takeaway I've learned is I think it's so important to focus on happiness. It's so easy to get lost in well, I need to make money, and this person wants to work with me and this and that, but man, happiness is where it's at. That's the main goal. So my biggest takeaway is if it's making you happy and you're enjoying it and you're good at it, then perhaps focus on that. That could very well be the thing that leads to your success. So thanks.
It often is. Look, there are professional cuddlers out there, okay? If they can make money cuddling people, why can't you make money doing something you like?
Absolutely.
I'm just saying, even the smallest things like that. You don't have to offer something that you just think they want. You can also offer something that you actually like. That's why there's the intersection between who are you, what are you actually good at, and what do they want? And there's an intersection. It doesn't completely overlap. There's an intersection. They're going to want things that you're not going to offer, and that's okay. That's fine, because they can hire someone else for that. But yeah, and you also, I know everyone, it's really easy in the beginning to want to cater to people, want to really help people. You want to be yeah, sure, I can do that. Because that's, especially if any of you guys were at one point executive assistants, admin assistants, personal assistants, any of those types of roles, receptionist, those roles were very, very specifically you can do anything. You should do anything. In fact, you should want to. And so it's really hard to sometimes break from that mindset of I can do literally anything someone asked me to do. And it felt good to do that for those things. But when you're the boss of your own business, it's not going to feel good because you're not getting benefits from them. You're paying for all your own, you're paying for all your own stuff. They're basically just taking advantage of you when and if that happens. So that's why you want to be really specific. Who's your ideal client? And the more specific you are on that, and the more passionate you are, I'm using passionate again, but more passionate you are and the more you like what you're actually doing, people can read that energy. People can tell when you're just kind of using a copy pasted strategy or caption because you feel like you have to, or when you're not really into things. And when you're more passionate about things, you're usually also a little bit more willing to do what needs to be done. That's why the whole feed thing is important, because you're more willing to get on stories if you need to. You're more willing to reach out to people because you actually want to talk about this thing. So that's why that's important. So it's something to consider, especially if you offer general services, really starting to think, is there any of the stuff that, yes, I can do, but I don't really want to do? Like setting that boundary is super important. And knowing kind of where that boundary is also really important so that you don't get taken advantage of. Awesome. Anyone else want to share their takeaway? I see Alyssa actually said, focus on what you want. Yep, same thing. I love that. Understanding your goals. I will always talk about goals and vision. So super important. Please make sure you really focus on that. And if you didn't have a goal if you don't have a goal for the year, set one. Like think of something. It can be, reasonable, or it could be like an out there, like you want to reach for the stars. I've decided I'm going to hit 8K months by the end of this year. So that, and also move to Denver. There's that too. That was the other big thing. Big takeaway, definitely mindset focus. I'm really glad that you got a lot for the mindset focus, Gabby. Do you want to talk about that? Yes. Bye, Holly. Thank you so much for joining. Did you want to expand on that, Gabby, at all?
Yeah, since I like focusing on like the self-development side of things, and especially within a business, it's good to have like your mindset, like how you like a positive one, especially towards your clients and how you perceive yourself to everybody. So I definitely liked all the little bits that you added in to the actual focus of it, of the call.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed that. For anyone interested, I do have a mini course all about mindset in business. It's all about sustaining mindset through business. And it's actually $97 or $33 for 3 months if you want to do it that way. I understand people can sometimes have issues with finances up until tomorrow. So if you're interested in that, I cover way more than this. It's got like 20 lessons or something like that. But if you're interested, just let me know. Feel free to DM me, put it in the comment chat here, whatever you want to do. But that is definitely something that is kind of an easy way to learn different mindset practices. And 8K months in Denver, get it? Thank you, Amber. Yeah, I'm rooting for the stars here. Yeah, well, thank you guys so much for joining, and thank you so much for sharing your big takeaways too. Before I pop off, I'm going to make sure to save this chat. I will be sending a replay again afterwards, and I'll also be sending the slides as well. In that email that follows. It'll probably come in the next couple of hours, hopefully. So that way you can revisit this if you need to, revisit the slides if you need to. And again, yes, lovely to meet you too, Gabby. You guys know where to find me. I am on Instagram, and I'm also, you can reach out via email, but if you have any questions or if anything comes up after that you didn't get a chance to ask, feel free to pop in my DMs. I am more than happy to answer and just chat too. I like to talk about random things. All right, well, thank you guys so much, and it was so nice seeing you. I'll stay on if anyone wants to hang out a little bit after, but I'll wait till everyone goes.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely, thank you.
Have a good day, everyone.
You too. Have a great day.
Dami, you're the best.
You're the best, Sierra. Say hi to your dog for me.
Wait, let me show everyone. He's under. How do I flip it on? Oh, here.
It's still recording. For anyone watching the recording, here's a dog.
Yes, under my wires. Why he lays there, I don't know.
That is so
There's
cute.
that treat for your recording.
The best. Okay, good. That's all I needed to say. Ends on a good note. Bye.
Bye.